Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Great to have you with us on the program today. As mentioned, many intelligent, educated people believe science and traditional religion do not mix. A fascinating new book we'll be talking about today called Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. The author of the program is with us on the show today, Douglas L. He is a partner at the Kroom Law Firm in Washington, D.C., specializes in pensions and benefits law. He received an SP in mathematics from MIT, where he had a double major in math and physics, a law degree from the University of Connecticut, and as mentioned, his book is Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. And the book is available at his all across the country, but his website in particular with all the information, countingtogod.com. Doug, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Rick. I'm delighted to be here.
This is a fascinating book, a topic that a lot of people have discussed over the years. In fact, you call it one of the great questions of all time, which is accident or design. Talk about why this is a great question and why you decided to devote so much time. And this comes from not a set theory that you had when you entered this. And this is not a televangelist coming at us and giving us information. This is really based on hard science.
Absolutely. And the book is my personal journey. When I was at MIT, I was an atheist, and then when my son was born, my wife said we should get him baptized. And I thought, well, this isn't worth a marital fight,
Yeah, let's do it.
So I went along, and I can't describe it very well, but I just knew there was something to this God business. I could just sense it in the people there. But then I was really confused. I majored in science and math. I did 3 years of graduate school in theoretical math, and I needed to figure it out for myself, whether there really was a God or not. And I wasn't interested in the philosophical arguments or other people's personal experiences. I went to MIT. I had to figure it out, science and math.
Well, and that's what's so interesting. Your perspective, you come at it from a pure scientific standpoint. And with the law background that I talked about, this analytical standpoint that you look at, viewpoint, where you're not just accepting anything, you're walking through all of the steps. So you really laid this out in a very critical fashion. And you didn't go into it with a preconceived idea. You were not trying to prove or disprove.
I was trying to figure it out, absolutely. And I spent 30 years thinking this out. And as my side job, my day job as a pension lawyer, I learned how to analyze things and I think write decently. And I ended up coming up with 7 areas of science, each one of which I think strongly supports belief in God. And this is mainstream science. We're talking, accepted scientific facts here.
And the book is written in plain English. You can actually follow along and really have your eyes opened. And you sort of warn in the beginning that you might not be ready for the message. In fact, you say, I really wasn't ready for the message.
I wasn't. It really surprised me. I went into this thinking Darwinian evolution had to be true. And the facts I learned just astonished me.
What is fascinating as well is you launched the book on June 11th. A book advocating design at America's leading scientific institution, MIT, and really warmly embraced, and probably by those who still don't agree with you, but at least recognize and attacking it with an open mind. What was that like going back to MIT and presenting this information?
Well, that was really, just a special life experience. They set me up in a really nice lecture hall. I was introduced by the head of the physics department there. There were over 110 people from MIT there. And, we had some interesting questions, but nobody disputed my facts. And I think that the unbelievers in there were pretty shook. So
you made some believers that day.
I could see a lot of lights going on in heads around the room as I connected the dots.
And maybe just see the minds opening just a little bit that, okay, maybe what I've thought. In fact, it's sort of interesting. We grow up and we sort of have these preconceived ideas. Do you find when we go back and when we look at them, they're really not based much on anything other than the way we were taught growing up, whether in school or whether in church?
Yeah, and that's one of the strange things. And there's this preconceived idea by many that science and religion are incompatible, and they're fundamentally they're very compatible. They both support a lot of wonder and the idea of an intelligence out there.
The book is called Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. Douglas L. is the author of the book. He's our guest on This Week in America. The book is countingtogod.com. Information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can log on directly to Doug's website and get information on the book. You mentioned before you went through the 7 areas of modern science that strongly support belief in God. Number 1 on that list is creation of the universe. Let's talk about a couple of these
Right.
and what you found, because it really lays out the groundwork for really reevaluating how we balance science and religion.
Absolutely. Well, right. The first in my 7 steps of counting to God, number 1, as you just said, Rick, is the creation of the universe. I mean, why does anything exist? I mean, that's a pretty mind-boggling question.
Yes.
Um, and what I found is that there's basically, over all the centuries, there's only 2 answers. And one is that God did it, and the other is that it just exists and it always has existed, and nobody can explain it. And so for thousands of years, people thought that the universe was eternal and infinite until basically within the last 100 years, people found out that all the other galaxies mostly are moving away from us very fast. The universe is expanding rapidly, and came up with what's called the Big Bang Theory. You know, there's a show on it on TV.
Yes.
And which is that everything, all space, all time, time started, and all matter and energy were created in a single instant. And that is the now accepted mainstream scientific explanation for the universe. And we could get into a lot of history about atheists fighting on that. Now the atheists have retreated to the idea of this multiverse. Some people may have heard it, which is that, oh, there's a lot of universes out there and they just create each other. Well, there's no evidence for that. So that's a untestable scientific theory. And another thing, the second one of counting to God, my second point is that this universe is amazingly well designed for the existence of life. We could get into a lot of factors there, but one guy said it's like you shot a dart from Earth and hit a bullseye at the other end of the universe. I mean, and the mathematics in so many ways. I mean, why are there exactly the number of dimensions there are, the fundamental forces, the sizes of the particles? What you find is if you tinker with any of that just a little, life can't exist. So you start to suspect just from those first 2 points that maybe this explanation, I don't find this explanation that there's all these other universes out there very satisfying. And it certainly, I would think, that starts to leave you open to look at the deeper evidence for the existence of God.
The book is called Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. With us on the program is the author, Doug L., a prominent lawyer, dual degrees or degree from MIT, dual major in math and physics. And you mentioned in the book that scientists really don't have even a mildly plausible theory for the origin of life by pure chance.
Oh, absolutely. And the odds of that are staggering. At any time, it can't have happened by pure chance. I mean, even hardcore atheists, if they're honest, they'll agree with that. I mean, Richard Dawkins agrees with that. It can't have happened by pure chance. And it can't have, the laws of physics and chemistry haven't changed since the early universe. We know that. And you can't have natural selection of molecules before you set up this incredible structure for passing down traits through generations. There's no very complex molecules in outer space. You know, how does an operating system, life is incredibly complicated when you look at it, and how does it all start by chance? All the coding to build the machines, and the machines have to process the code. So that's one of my 7 wonders.
When you talk to scientists, when you're at a place like MIT and you have people with math and physics, science background sitting there, and you basically tell them you don't have even a mildly plausible theory. What is their reaction?
Well, first of all, some of them are surprised because obviously that's not the area for most scientists. And they've sort of heard that, over there somebody's thinking of a theory, or over there
Right,
somebody's
right.
coming up with something. There's this, sort of like urban legends. Nobody knows. It's not really true, but people sort of believe that, oh, somebody's got a theory. And
Well, and
it's
some
not
people
true.
probably think I probably couldn't understand it anyway, so I will accept what they're telling me.
Yeah, and and people don't think about the question, but nobody challenges basically the assumption that it couldn't have started by chance.
And the flip side of that is you say that modern science strongly supports the belief in God of the Bible.
Absolutely. I mean, the Bible. Look at the fundamental claims, starting with the beginning of the book of Genesis. I mean, I'm just taking it from a scientific background, point of view. Genesis says that God created the universe, God designed it for life, and then God created life. Those claims are supported by science.
The book is called Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. Very easy to understand, to read through. Douglas L. is the author, ELL. His website is very simple, countingtogod.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on and get more of the information. We're talking about some of the 7 areas of modern science that support the belief in God. Origin of life is one. And then we get to the technology of life, the puzzles of microevolution. We get into more of the scientific discoveries here. Talk about the technology of life.
The technology of life is amazing. I mean, we have 3.2 billion letters of code in our bodies, letters of DNA. And people have just found out, here's something really amazing, Rick. Within the last 2 years, there's this discovery by something called the Encode Project that looked at all our DNA, and they found that almost all, or perhaps even all of it, is functional. And they found out that there's at least 2 levels of information in our code. So you start thinking about that. You don't have to get particularly mathematical to realize that this business that the code was put together by chance just doesn't make a lot of sense. And how do you process the information? DNA is an amazing molecule. The machines that read it and process it, I describe in my book. Anybody who's tried to build something, I think this is, any sort of engineer or programmer realizes, you don't just start putting things together by chance. You got to think about it a lot, and it takes a lot of hard work to get something to work.
An excellent book, Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. And once again, if you just joined us in the program, this is not some fire and brimstone preacher at 2 o'clock in the morning who's trying to get collections for an addition to his church or missionary work or whatever. This was a skeptic, an admitted atheist going in, that suddenly eyes open, and you make such a compelling case, and you don't have to be a scientist to understand this. The book is brilliantly broken down. Number 1 is setting the stage. That's the history of the debate. That's your journey. Part 2, we're talking about the science of belief. And I want to talk about something else in that, and then we'll move the discussion along here. The special qualities of Earth. This is something else that when you really start reading, it's like, wow, this couldn't have been just random.
Yeah, I mean, this scientifically, I find this a fascinating chapter in one of my 7 counts. I'll tell you that the mathematics in this aren't as overwhelming because we're still learning what creates planets. But you read the headlines that there's billions of Earth-sized planets out there. That's probably true, but just because something is Earth-sized doesn't mean that it can support life over millions or billions of years. There's so many special qualities about the composition of the Earth. We have the right amount of water, the right amount of iron. We're in a really stable part of the galaxy, in a stable solar system with a stable star. And the most amazing thing is our moon, where there's really absolutely no scientific explanation as accepted as to how the moon was formed. There's different theories, but it's a pretty special moon that keeps the Earth at the same angle to the sun. So I could go on, and I do in the book, but one estimate is that the odds of finding another planet like Earth in our galaxy are probably less than one in 100, and there's billions of stars in the galaxy.
That is why the book is so powerful. It's not like, okay, here's one theory, I'm going to have one fact and lay it out there.
Mm.
I mean, you've got a number. Part 3 is the conclusion, the logic of belief, connecting the dots, and a few minutes left in the program. And again, the book is Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. Doug L. is the author and our guest on the program. CountingToGod.com is the website. It's available all across the country. And go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Doug's website. In conclusion here, when you were going through this process and you've got the 7 areas, was there a particular point in time where you're thinking, I'm shifting now?
Yeah.
I'm out of that atheist mode to maybe now really believing.
Yeah, I remember it definitely. I was on an airplane. I spend a lot of time on airplanes. And I was reading this really nerdy 7-pound book, graduate study in molecular biology, and reading about how our proteins are put together out of 20 different amino acids. So, there's 26 letters, there's 20 different amino acids, and they're put together. And then I started multiplying the probability, 20 times 20 times 20 for 300 or more times, because there's typically like 300 amino acids snapped together to form a protein. You realize the chances of getting a particular combination are just impossible in the history of the universe. And there are millions of special proteins in different organisms. I mean, when I saw that mathematics, I just this was literally on the back of an envelope in an airplane, and that was really, if you'll excuse the expression, a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, that was an eye-opener for you. That's so fascinating. A minute or so left in the program. At the end, you talk about one of the real negatives of the way we approach this is denying our children the true facts.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll make any progress? And your book certainly will go a long way in doing that, opening some eyes and opening some minds.
Yeah, I emphasize this at MIT, and I think I got agreement by those in the room. I mean, we've got so much in our textbooks that's just wrong. We've got this. There's this Miller-Urey experiment that suggests life was formed accidentally, or you can get there accidentally. That's been disproved false, but it's still in most textbooks in the United States. The textbooks ought to be balanced if they're going to say anything. They shouldn't say false things designed to turn people away from God. People ought to be able to figure this out on their own.
The book is called Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. Our guest on the program is Doug L. The book is available at his website, CountingToGod.com. Also available all across the country, information at our website. Didn't even get into, and we'll maybe in another program talk about some of the legal issues. Doug drafted the first 401k plan in professional sports, represented a number of corporations, unions, and pension plans. Pension plan strikes out at, as I go through that, it's like, will they even be there by the time most of us get ready for that? You've appeared before Congress and encouraged them to make important changes in employee benefits. So we maybe can talk about that at another time. But there's much more to talk about here, and we'd love to have you back on the program. Thank you so much for the book. It's powerful. If you think I've already made up my mind, and so many make up their minds without really any evidence. They're sort of, as I said in the beginning, sort of led that way by family, by church, by school, whatever. Suddenly you're looking at it with a different through a different prism, and it's very eye-opening. The book is Counting to God, A Personal Journey Through Science to Belief. Doug, thank you so much. Look forward to having you back on the program.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
It's great to have you with us. Information available at his website, countingtogod.com, and of course at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.